Hi guys, Mr. Hill here with your English lesson for today. Our last few English lessons, we've boxed up the model text. We've started developing our own ideas of how we want our story to go. In our last live session, we put together our opening paragraph. We boxed it up for ourselves. We put the ideas down and we're going to write that, or rather we can't do it together. I'm going to write it and I'm going to talk you through my thought process as I went through it. So before we get started, we're going to start thinking about figurative language that we can add into our writing to really make it pop, make it into a really smart, interesting piece of writing. So you're going to have a look at a paragraph in a minute, and what you need to do is go through it and underline and label each example of figurative language in that paragraph. Check it off on the list as you go. And you should find these following things. I'm going to give you the word and I'm going to give you the definition so you know what you're looking for. Hyperbole, an exaggerated statement or a claim not meant to be taken literally. For example, I must have told you a million times to start your sentences with a capital letter. I might have only told you 2 or 3 times, but I've exaggerated. I've made it sound like I've told you a lot more than I already have. Onomatopoeia, the form of a word from a sound associated with what is named. So for example, cuckoo or sizzle. So if you think of something frying in a pan, you hear that nice sizzling, crackling noise. If you think of a fire, you might hear crackling and popping. If you think of a balloon, pop, it's what the noise the balloon makes, or bang. Those are all examples of onomatopoeia, and we can use those in our writing to help us really bring our writing to life. A metaphor, so a word or a phrase that's applied to an object or an action, saying it is something else. A simile, saying something is like or as something else. As quick as a flash would be an example of a simile. An allusion, an expression designed to call something to mind without mentioning it explicitly. An indirect or passing reference. So if you think back to when we did our Jungle Book stories, we gave an allusion in there. We hinted at the unknown. We talked about a tiger. We had flashes of orange stripes and eyes and teeth. So we gave the illusion that something was there. An idiom, a group of words established by usage as having a meaning not deducible from those of the individual words. For example, over the moon. It's impossible to actually get over the moon without getting into a spaceship and flying there. See the light. Well, you can't see without the light. So that's the idea. So it's not necessarily, what am I trying to say? It's not obvious what we're trying to describe. So personification, the attribution of a personal nature or human characteristics to something non-human, or the representation of an abstract quality in human form. So you could have something, you could have the dragon smiled, a row of needle-like teeth. So dragons might not be able to smile. Or if you think about a crocodile, it doesn't actually have the muscles in its mouth to smile. But you can say it smiles because when it's showing its teeth, that's kind of what it looks like. So it's taking that personal or a personal nature or human characteristic and giving it something that's non-human. So alliteration, the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. We've done lots with alliteration, so we know what we're looking for with that one. So I'm going to share with you now the paragraph that you're going to look at. Seb felt fear crawl up his spine as he cautiously tiptoed towards the lake. Crafty, sharply scaled crocodiles are known to inhabit these misty, muddy waters. Crunch! Another human skull snapped beneath his feet. Seb was playing with fire. He knew that crocodiles were dangerous. However, he had no choice. He had to be as brave as a Saxon warrior. Seb waded into the murky brown water. Was this Wonka's chocolate river? No, it smelt like rotting eggs. Suddenly, a humongous crocodile slithered from the lakeside and swam at 1,000,000 kilometers an hour. Seb saw the ripples in the water and caught a flash of the croc's eyes, which stood out like menacing table tennis balls. Seb's heart became a robotic hammer. I'm sure he could hear it. The croc was catching. He's a bullet, thought Seb. Sharp, triangular teeth closed on his legs. Just as Seb grabbed the land with his hand, he rapidly turned around and Cobra Kai kicked the croc in the head, whilst thick, mangled reeds twisted around his body like a helter-skelter. The croc retreated and Seb breathed a huge sigh of relief. Have a look through. We've got the ideas in there. So we're going to go back and we're going to look for hyperbole, onomatopoeia, a metaphor, a simile, allusion, idiom, personification, and alliteration. There's 8 things to find in there. So I'm going to put the story back up. So you might want to pause here and make a list of these 8. And when you're ready, press play and I'll put the text back up for you. Got them written down? Fantastic. Here's the text for you. Pause the video here to complete this. It might take you a few minutes. Take your time. There's no rush on this. When you're ready, press play and we'll start looking at our model text and the allusion, the beginning of our story together. All done? Brilliant. Let's have a look. I took the ideas we discussed in our last live session and put them into my model, my box up for the anticipation. So we had our opening, listen carefully, my fellow friends, and we talked about an ancient tale. We had a setting, the village in a dark, mysterious wood, monsters hidden in plain sight. We had our chief, Brock, a mighty warrior and champion of his people. He built a statue in the center of the village, celebrating their ancestors' victory over the shadows. So this angered our hidden spirits, and the people disappeared without a trace. I've added a bit in, so we've got not a mark on the buildings, only Brock left behind, waiting for. And I've left that blank, so I'm going to fill that in as I go. I've got an idea, but I want to really build it up as I write it. And I've just put in Brock remained for 10 long winters, the statue knocked to the ground. So I'm going to go through this with you. So I'm going to write this. I'm going to have some things to help me as I go. So I'm going to have those on the screen as well. And I'm just going to talk you through my thought process. Give me 1 second. I'll get the work up. I'll be straight back. Okay. On my right, I've got a copy of our model text. I've just taken the anticipation from it. So the build up to our story. I might pinch some ideas. I might magpie from it. There's some nice ideas in there, some nice imagery in there. I might take it if it fits. If it doesn't, I'm not going to worry too much, but I'm going to have it there to help me with the structure. On the left, I've copied across our anticipation. So listen carefully, my fellow friends. And I've just brought that box over with me. So I'm just going to remove this. So I've got some more space to work in, and then we'll go through it. So we're going to start off with our opening. So we started off with listen carefully, my fellow friends. I bring you an ancient tale. So we've got our beginning. I think I could do better with it. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. I had a thought as I was writing that. So I'm going to change this to gather round the fire. Oop, not the fur, the fire, and listen carefully. This, to me, gives you the idea that this is a tale that's been told for hundreds of years in the same way. You gather around the fire, you share the story, you tell it. So we've got our opening. We've drawn everyone in. We've got our hook. So we've got the idea that we're going to sit around a fire. We're going to listen to this story. And I'm going to bring you an ancient tale. The fire works really well as well, because we've got dark, mysterious. We've got monsters hidden in shadows throughout our story. So this works well because round a fire, you will get shadows. You don't have perfect light round a fire. So I'm going to move on and start looking at describing it. So we're going to introduce where we set our story. Now, we didn't come up with a name for the place, so I'm going to pick somewhere. I'm going to go with Sweden. I quite like the idea that this is a Swedish story. So how do we start the next paragraph? In our model text, we've got in ages past, Denmark was a wild place. We could magpie from that, so we could borrow the idea. We can change a few little bits around. I'm going to keep in ages past. So I'm going to change where it is. And I'm going to change it slightly. So I'm going to have mysterious. So I've got in ages past, Sweden was a mysterious, dark place. Actually, no, place doesn't work. Country, I'm going to go for. So I'm going to give my illusion. So monsters hid in the shadows, seen by those who knew where to look. So we give the idea there's something there. So the mighty Brock. So here we go. We are starting to introduce characters now. So this is what our beginning was going to do. It's going to introduce our main sort of support character, if you like. So the mighty Brock. So what did we say? He said we have mighty warrior, champion of those people. So we can have the mighty Brock, a champion of his people. Known for being fair and kind. That was something else we discussed. So that you can see how what we've talked about starting to feed in to what's coming out and being written now. So known for being fair and kind, treating all with respect. So we've introduced our character. We've got the idea, this champion. So we've got this big character, but he's got a nice side to him. He's fair and kind and treats the people around him with respect. So we're going to move on. He was known as a generous and fair king from our model text. So let's change this. So let's have it. Let's put a full stop here. He was known for being fair and kind. And there needs to be a comma there as well. Treating all with respect. So we need to move it on a bit. We need to say what he's going to do. We talked about a statue in the middle of our village. So what I've taken the statue to be is the ancestors overcoming the shadows, scoring a victory against these monsters, driving them away. And the idea is that they're going to be annoyed by this. They're going to feel like someone's making fun of them, that fun's being made of them. So by doing that, they're going to anger the monsters. They're going to come back in, and then we have the beginning of our story and the resolution moving forward. So he was known for being fair and kind, treating all with respect. He ordered the construction of a, what's the word I'm going to use? Not mighty, that doesn't sound right. Magnificent, that sounds much nicer. So magnificent statue to celebrate, let's spell celebrate correctly, to celebrate the historic. So it gives us the idea that it's an old victory. This is from time gone by. Celebrate the historic victory over the shadows. So we've given this here. We need to think of maybe giving it a name, or we'll give it a bigger description. So I'm going to go with working on my description. He ordered the construction of a magnificent statue to celebrate the historic victory over the shadows. It was truly a sight to behold. Decorated in the finest, well, what could we have? Do we have it stone? Do we have it in gold? Ooh, we could magpie from our model text here. We got a description of Herod, made of the finest wood, decorated with silver and gold. So I've got, it was truly a sight to behold, but I've not said what it's made of. How about this? Let's just move that down out of the way a second. Made from the finest stone. Decorated. So I'm not going to have finest in again. I'm going to have, ooh, glowing. Decorated in glowing gold. I'm going to magpie as well. I'm going to take gold and silver. So we've got our description in here now, so we can start seeing why the monsters might be a little bit annoyed that we've done something like this. So we need to think about how we're going to start really winding up the monsters and start alluding to what's going to happen, giving some sort of illusion that actually something's not right. So I'm going to move down a little bit. So in our model text, each night, the king invited his bravest warriors to a lavish feast of roasted meat, jugs of frothing ale, and music for dancing feet. We could have something like that in here. So we could have, God, I got the idea of shadows in my head again. So would night work better for shadows, or would dusk? So as the sun's setting, the shadows get drawn out. I'm going to go with that. So each evening, as dusk fell, there we go. So we've got the idea of whatever the time of day here. The villagers gathered round with, right, what are they going to have? So we've got to think, we've got this ornate statue, it's a celebration. So do we magpie from our model text again? Do we go back and look at it? We talk about brave warriors. We haven't got warriors at the moment. We've got our villagers. Could we describe the villagers? Could we give them an adjective? I'm going to go with joyous. They're celebrating, aren't they? They're happy. So the joyous villagers gathered round with, here we go. I'm going to try this. Plates of steaming meat, freshly baked bread, and barrels of, now what could we have? We've got frothing ale, so we've got the idea of all the bubbles on top. I want something slightly more interesting. So we could think about something like mead, which was a honeyed water that was fermented and slightly alcoholic. Or we could go with something really sensible. I like the idea of the mead. It's quite a traditional drink. So barrels of, now, they're going to drink it hot or cold. I'm going to go with warm, with some barrels of warm mead to quench the thirst of the villagers. Oops, helps if you spell it properly, doesn't it? There we go. So each evening, the joyous villagers gathered round with plates of steaming meat, freshly baked bread, and barrels of warm mead to quench the thirst of the villagers. So they drank and ate and made merry until late in the night. So we've got a party going on. Now we need our illusion that's going to finish this paragraph off really nicely. So we go back to our model text. In brackets right at the end, but outside, something evil was rising. I'm going to go with something similar, but as they went back to their homes, there was something watching from the shadows, ... There we go. So we've got our 3 dots there to just give you the hint. So bear with me 1 second. I will put our model up on one screen so we can read it all together. Okay, here we go. Here's our model text. Here's our class write that we've done in a very unique way this time round. So instead of being able to share ideas in the classroom, we've shared them in our live session and we've put them together. Here we go. The opening for our story. Gather round the fire and listen to care. Gather round the fire and listen carefully, my fellow friends. I bring you an ancient tale. In ages past, Sweden was a mysterious, dark country. Monsters hid in the shadows, seen by those who knew where to look. The mighty Brock, a champion of his people. He was known for being fair and kind, treating all with respect. He ordered the construction of a magnificent statue to celebrate the historic victory over the shadows. It was truly a sight to behold, made from the finest stone, decorated in glowing gold and silver. Each evening as dusk fell, the joyous villagers gathered round with plates of steaming meat, freshly baked bread and barrels of warm mead to quench the thirst of the villagers. They drank and ate and made merry until late in the night. But as they went back to their homes, there was something watching from the shadows. So we've taken our ideas, we've built it up, and I'm hoping that you watching me writing this has given you some ideas as to how to go about this. What you're going to do, you're going to move the story on from here. So what I will do, I'll put this up on our Teams so you can have a copy of it. I'll put the model text on there as well. I'll get all of the pieces for the model text and I'll put that into a separate document. What I want to share with you now is I'm going to go back to our slides and I'm going to share with you what I've done for the rest of my box up. Bear with me. Right, here we are, back with the rest of my box up. So I've taken my first part, my anticipation, and that's what we've written just now. If you think you can make some improvements to the anticipation, please do. I'd love to see them. What we're going to look onto next is the dream and the frustration. Now, you might have taken your dream and frustration in a different direction. That's absolutely fine. These are my ideas. So I've got my hero, Blitzung, and I've gone slightly different. I've not gone down the traditional muscle-bound hero, you know, sort of Conan the Barbarian type character. I've chosen a female character. I've gone somewhere different with this. You might want to do that. You might decide to have something even more interesting as your idea. She raised a small army, having heard of Brock's sadness, and rode to the village. She meets Brock. So this is where we have our main characters gets introduced. They discuss vanquishing the monsters and restoring the village. They have a feast. They form their plans. They set up an ambush. They put the statue back up, waiting for the monsters to come. So we've got all of these starting to come together. They put the statue back up. They're waiting for the monsters. They wait for 3 cold nights. The idea that they're waiting and waiting and waiting, the frustration's building up. The monsters rushed from the shadows. We've got the clash of weapons. So I've got some onomatopoeia here, thud of shields, clang of swords. So we can build in where we put in these devices that we've just been talking about earlier today. The idea that a voice rings out, the leader of the monsters. The leader decides that actually let's not have this as an all-out battle between 2 sides. Let's pick 2 heroes. And this is where we can begin our nightmare. So you have the idea of the 2 armies stood back watching the heroes fighting together. I've got the idea that our hero Blitzung has slipped on the frozen earth. She's lost her sword. The idea that Wilder's bashing away, smashing the shield to splinters. There's no protection. She stood over her, waiting to deliver the fatal blow. So my ideas are all in here. If you want to borrow them, magpie from them, to change them around a little bit, it's here for you to use. And then I've got my miraculous escape. So Wilder creeping backwards, trying to escape, and gets stuck against a horse trough that's overflowed. And in the cold, the water's frozen to make icicles. She's grabbed one, she's used it as a weapon. And yeah, this is your miraculous escape. So there's a bit of skill, there's a bit of courage, and there's a bit of luck involved in our miraculous escape for this one. So what I'll do, I'm going to put this on our teams as well. So I'm going to give you a copy of my introduction. So you can use that and you can write on from that. I'm going to put a copy of the model text on for you, and I'm going to put you a copy of my box up. So my ideas. So if you haven't finished your ideas or you haven't got some of the ideas down, have a look at this, magpie from this, pick out what you like, and then build your story up using these. If you're struggling to think of some of the devices to use, go back and watch the beginning of this video where we're talking about similes and metaphors and onomatopoeia, and see if you can build some of those in. You've got your toolkit to use as well that we went through. So we've got the ideas, we've got alliteration, we've got the rule of three. So we say something 3 times over. So you might have in your nightmare, or if you think frustration, if you think back to our model text, we've got Beowulf doesn't let go. Grendel's crashed and thrashed, but Beowulf didn't let go. So we repeat that phrase 3 times over. It builds the idea that he's hanging on. If you can use it in here, fantastic. Add it in your box up so you don't forget to use it. Okay, over to you guys now. The work's on Teams for you if you need it. So as I said, my introduction, the model text, and a copy of this box up will be on there for you to use. I'll put it in the questions about work only feed so you can find it nice and easily. Any questions, message me, and I'll look forward to seeing your finished work on Tapestry. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you for our next lesson.